I've got more folks asking about Jeremiah 29:11, so here we go. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. And this verse, as heartening as it may seem, is famously plucked out of its context a lot. I know, it's a beloved verse. I love this verse too, just throwing it out there. But it is frequently misused in ways that can really lead to a lot of hurt. And it often goes like this: I know you're facing cancer, or I know you've just been laid off, or I know your husband of 20 years has just cheated on you, or I know you've endured lifelong abuse by those you've trusted, but don't worry. Jeremiah 29:11 promises prosperity, safety, and hope in a future. Just keep the faith, and things will turn around. For my own life, as our firstborn son was dying in the hospital, well-meaning folks recited this verse to us, hoping to instill hope in us. And yet our son still passed away in our arms days later. The intentions of these people, good. Application, deeply flawed. And as much as I hold this verse dear for its uplifting spirit, we often wield it carelessly, extending it to those grappling with loss, terminal diagnoses, or deep-seated grief or financial ruin. Because what if the healing doesn't come? What if the grief swamps? What if life continues to batter? And that can lead to a lot of bitterness, fear, and self-condemnation. Don't I have enough faith? What must I do to make God prosper me? Why is God prospering them and not me? Did I do something wrong? Doesn't God love me? Am I out of God's favor? Is the Bible untrue? And it just spirals down. But no, the verse isn't deceitful. And yes, God loves you dearly. But the issue is that we're lifting that verse out of its proper context. Because originally, Jeremiah 29:11 was spoken to the Israelites during the crushing Babylonian exile. Jerusalem was in ruins. The Temple of Solomon had been razed. The Ark of the Covenant is gone. The community was in despair, yearning for deliverance from their problems. But that instant rescue did not happen. Instead, God outlined a long-term plan, and it took 70 years. So this verse of 29:11 is actually addressing a collective, not individuals. This duration might be, 70 years might be long for a person, but in the vast weave of history and from an eternal perspective, 70 years is like that. But when you're in it, no, this verse isn't a promise of immediate personal relief or material gain. Instead, it speaks to the expansive, faithful nature of God and God's master plan, ensuring that ultimately everything aligns for our greater good, even when things are falling apart at the seams. You could make the argument, did early Christians facing martyrdom in the arena find solace if you said, do you know the plans I have for you? In that moment, life sucked, it was over painfully. But those profound sacrifices, as difficult as they were, they ignited a faith that has transformed countless lives over millennia. So for the individual, it sucked, but for the collective, God does have a plan for us, but it's not about dodging hardships and not facing problems. Like Jesus faced the cross and the apostles their own trials, we each have our own crucible to bear. Jesus never sugarcoated the prospect of suffering. He outright assured us of its inevitability in numerous passages like John 15:19-21, Matthew 5:10-12, and so many more. So while Jeremiah 29:11 can be a personal verse if it resonates, we must tread cautiously when offering it to others in pain, because it might not comfort them. It might actually increase their anguish. But as far as me, the verse did ring true in its own way, but not how the givers intended and not how I understood it at the time. Because while our son did die, it was our son's earthly death that launched my wife and I both into an incredible deeper journey of faith beyond the surfacey nonsense, that years later led to a face-to-face meeting with the King of the universe. But that's another story for another time. So, God bless, and I'll see you soon.